Upbeat, engaging music plays. Welcome back to On the Same Page, the podcast where we explore books that challenge our thinking and shape the way we understand business, economics, and society. I'm your host, Uwera Holy Stephen, and today we're diving into a book that flips the script on Africa's debt where credit is due, how Africa's debt can be a benefit, not a burden, by Gregory Smith. Debt is often seen as a crisis in Africa, a heavy chain that limits growth. But what if debt could actually be a tool for progress? Could African countries use borrowing to fuel economic transformation instead of falling into financial distress? This book challenges the traditional doom and gloom narrative around African debt and presents a fresh perspective on how smart financial strategies can turn debt into a catalyst for development. Let's break it down. To understand the present, we have to look at the past. Where Credit is Due takes us through Africa's history with debt, from post-independence borrowing to the debt crises of the 1980s and 90s. After independence, many African nations borrowed heavily to build infrastructure and stimulate economic growth, but poor management, corruption, and global financial shocks led to unsustainable debt levels. The 1990s saw severe economic distress, with the IMF and World Bank stepping in to push for structural adjustments, which came with their own set of challenges. The early 2000s saw debt relief programs like the Heavily Indebted Poor Countries (HIPC) initiative, reducing some of the burden and giving countries a fresh start. So, where do we stand today? Smith argues that borrowing is not inherently bad, it's how you use it that matters. Many successful economies, from the US to China, have used debt strategically. Africa can do the same. Here's how. Infrastructure development. Roads, railways, energy, and technology require massive investments that governments can't always finance from their budgets alone. Economic growth. Borrowing allows countries to invest in industries like manufacturing, agriculture, and digital services, creating jobs and boosting GDP. Regional integration debt can help fund cross-border projects like the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, boosting intra-African trade. But the big question is, how do we ensure debt is used wisely? While debt can be a powerful tool, mismanagement can lead to disaster. The book warns of several key risks. Excessive borrowing. Some countries take on too much debt without clear plans for repayment, leading to crises. Lack of transparency. When deals are made behind closed doors, corruption and inefficiency thrive. Debt from China and private investors. Unlike traditional Western loans, some of these debts come with high interest rates and hidden conditions. Poor project selection. Borrowing for projects that don't generate economic returns can leave nations struggling to pay back loans. What solutions does the book offer? Smith provides actionable steps for African nations to ensure debt is a benefit, not a burden. Better negotiation skills. Governments need to negotiate better terms and avoid loans that come with hidden risks. Diversifying lenders. Relying on a mix of international financial institutions, private investors, and regional banks can reduce dependency on any single lender. Transparency and accountability. Clear reporting and public participation in debt discussions ensure responsible borrowing. Revenue generation. Improving tax collection and expanding local industries can provide the funds needed to repay debts without over-relying on borrowing. These strategies can shift the narrative from crisis to opportunity, but will African leaders implement them effectively? So, what's next? Africa's borrowing patterns are evolving. Many nations are turning to bond markets, issuing Eurobonds to raise capital. There's growing interest in green bonds, which fund climate-friendly projects. Regional cooperation through platforms like the African Union is helping create more sustainable debt strategies. The book leaves us with an optimistic but cautious outlook. Debt is a tool, and like any tool, it must be used wisely. This book was an eye-opener. Debt isn't necessarily Africa's downfall, it's the way we handle it that matters. So, what do you think? Is Africa's debt a crisis, or can it be turned into an opportunity? Join the conversation on our social media platforms or send in your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe to On the Same Page for more deep dives into the books that shape our world. See you next time.